So welcome to my presentation today. We are going to start a new chapter, Meteorology and Environment. So this is the seventh chapter. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about the relationship between the different meteorological attributes on our environment. Particularly, we will look to see the changes that has been governed by the meteorological attributes to forest resources, that means the natural resources. And also we will see the impact of meteorological attributes to the agricultural system. And with this phenomena, we'll also try to see to other factors in our topics in this chapter, in our syllabus. There are a couple of different other topics we can see. We're going to discuss about the air pollution index, which is a particular index that is related to quality of the air pollution content in the current situation. We are going to discuss about that, particularly for Bangladesh index. And later of this chapter, in the last one, we are going to discuss about the very interesting topic, that is weather modification. How different ways we can change the weather, and that can be useful for our daily life. So starting from the very first of all, what are the different meteorological attributes that can influence on different natural system, particularly the forest resources? Sorry. So first of all, different meteorological attributes can be the important meteorological factors that can be temperature, solar radiation, humidity, precipitation, and windfall. Sorry. So temperature is the first one that we can experience in our daily life, that depending on the temperature variation throughout the world, the forest system or forest biome that has been distributed. Forest or natural resource, or whatever we can see, that is a combination of species of plant and animals, that means wildlife. So those resources fully dependent on the temperature variation. If you can see the different ecosystems, the ecosystem itself define that this is a relationship between the living and non-living living organisms and non-living things, both together. So here is one important factor is temperature. Now the question is how differently they can influence. If you see the tropical areas and subtropical areas, our forest species and our animal species, which is much more different than the species from the temperate region. Why? Because in the tropical areas the temperature is quite high. We have good amount of the good high amount of the temperature, that with some other factors also, or for example the precipitation or solar radiation, everything is quite high in this content. And so the species also different. Mostly in case of forest resources, we see broadleaf species in here, and broadleaf species can only be possible in those areas where this heating, the temperature is quite high, and where we can get maximum amount of the rainfall and also solar radiation. On the other hand, if you look to the species in the temperate region or high altitude countries, you can see many conifer species.
Yes.
Sorry, sorry, do you have any question? Okay. So many conifer species in case of many conifer species that can be seen in different temperate regions, and the structure of different species leaves also different. In case of broadleaf species, you can see the leaves are quite different than the conifers. Conifers are needle-like structured, and that's why they are taking off amount of the water from the soil, and their transmission system transmission system, everything is different. Their metabolism also different. Similarly, if you see the wildlife, the far system of Himalayan range species, which is quite difficult in the from the African one. So why? Because of the temperature, because of the other factors. If you also concentrate about the precipitation, you will also can see precipitation can influence in different ecosystem differently. A good example is the species from the desert areas. So in the desert areas, what we can see, most of the species which can live in or survive with a very minimum amount of the water, which might not be possible for the other species. In case of that particular areas, the temperature also very high. Sometimes, most of the times, it is more than 40 degrees centigrade in the desert areas. And also the other factors, soil or adaphic factors also different. That is a different issues. But in case of meteorological issues also, you can see high amount of the temperature, low amount of the humidity and precipitation with great solar radiation, they can survive. On the other hand, in the same region, if you just take this type of species in there, that will not gonna survive. So we can understand and we can confirm that temperature and other resource, other meteorological attributes, they have great influence on this distribution of the natural resources. Now the question is, if it has been changed, if it has been little bit change its positions or it amounts, how differently they will gonna react. Well, maybe the small changes, they can also change the metabolism or the physiological responses of the species, but they can survive. But with the high amount of the changes, it might not be possible. How can you say that? We can say that because there are a couple of research that has been said that if the temperature has been increases, if the precipitation has been decreases, then the types of the species will also be changed from the forest. Even some soil adaphic factors also, even the soil, some of the qualities of the soil, that can also change the diversification of the species. Although this is not a meteorological direct aspects, but that can indirectly link to with those type of factors. Another factor is wind. Wind can also change the distribution, because most of the cases, the high amount of the wind, that means more than the general wind, that can also trigger the uproot the trees. And so that those are the areas where the wind is maximum, the system and the species is quite different than other areas. In case of coastal areas, you will see a different sets of species. In case of the highland, top of the mountains, you will see another type of species, and in the valley you will see another species. That is also dependent on wind. Even the adaptive factor is same. Even the soil moisture on other contents and temperature are the same in the same area, but still the species is different, because this is their evolution, this is their metabolism differences, this is their root system differences. They can be grown in different areas differently. Now the question is, this is the normal case, but if the weather phenomena is going to be extreme, what will be the differences? Well, there are many areas where maybe the temperature, solar radiation, humidity, that might be little bit different, but sudden weather extremes, they can have also influence on our forest resources. If we think about the seedlings, we are not going to think about the we are not going to for example, first of all, we are thinking about the plantation programs. So some of the areas where snow and ice, which can be fall throughout the country in many times, then we need a different management system rather than a very simpler one. In case of Bangladesh, what we do during the plantation program, if it is a large area, we just plant our seedlings. We don't actually have much more care in there. Maybe at the very first time we can give a stick together, so that the seedlings cannot be break down. That is all. But in case of many areas where snow and ice is a common phenomena, then at that time we need a different system so that it can also restrict the snow during the seedling stages. If you don't do that, then what will happen with the sudden snow falling, with a one snow falling or ice, when it turned to ice at that time, then the whole of the plantation will gonna diminished or damaged only through a one snow falling. Your seedling size is, for example, 1 feet or 2 feet sometimes, and then maybe a huge amount of the snow that can hold the whole structure for a couple of days. When it turned to ice, from snow to ice, then they can also change damage the whole area. So we need some extra care, so that maybe with a pipe of plastic, so that top of the pipe can be covered, and then the solar radiation can very easily be penetrated through these plastic, so that the seedling can be survived. And when it can grows a little bit up in the next season or the following season, it is now it is free to get the snow and ice, and that will not gonna harm that particular type of species then. And then if it is a temperature extreme, then this is also influenced greatly, because sometimes in many areas the temperature has been triggered to a little bit high or little bit low. For example, in case of tropical any areas, in case of Bangladesh, we do have a temperature of in the summer season maybe 35 to 40, most of the cases, but suddenly if it is more than 40, suddenly if it is more than 40 couple of days or couple of weeks, then many species which is a small which is not suitable for this temperature, they might gonna die. Similarly, in many areas where the temperature is very low, and during the summer season their maximum temperature is 15 degree centigrade, maybe 5 to 15 degree centigrade, or maybe sometimes it is highestly 20 degree centigrade, and then suddenly their average temperature has been increased for a couple of on season, that 25 to 30 degree centigrade, which is very very comfortable for our cases, but for their cases it is very extreme temperature with high amount of heat. The species will not gonna survive. The human beings also been impacted, so that the other forest resources or natural resources will be impacted. Wind throw or blowing of the wind, which is greater than the amount, sometimes we say it is hurricane or cyclone, that has a great influence on the forest and natural resources. Think about some cyclonic great event to our Bangladesh. Sidor itself, only one incident to Bangladesh Sundarbans, it creates a huge damage to the Sundarbans. Although it protected the coastal communities, it's fine, that's nice, but what about the losses of the Sundarbans? Well, during the couple of years the Sundarban regain its strength, and slowly it can also get its full strength. But what happened during that Sidor, we have seen from different photographs that an assessment that a huge loss has been happened. So many species has been broken down and uprooted, and many wildlife have been also died due to that type of cyclonic events. So that can also be on thing that during these extreme weather, what type of species can survive, what type of species can take their shelter in different ways. So this is also important. This is also one type of impacts of meteorology on forest resources. Another important factor is pest and diseases, which is much more dependent on the temperature, which is much more dependent on the humidity, and other factors also. So during this type of countries where the temperature is quite high, humidity is high, particular type of insects and pests can survive, and they can damage your products. But if the temperature goes very down, then two things will happen. One thing is this type of species may not harm your products, but another different types of pest and disease can come, and that will also have some impacts on your products, on your natural resources. Similarly, many cold countries where the humidity is very low, that time maybe a couple of insects and diseases may not be possible to survive in there. But when the temperature increases a little bit, for example, 5 degrees centigrade has been more in a particular season for a couple of days, in that time, many species, many insects and seeds, they can also come from other countries, other areas, and they can also be very they can also damage your natural resources. So depending on meteorological attributes, forest resources are being greatly impacted in this way. So examples, you can draw many examples you can draw from the resources explained, and you can also get many other different types of information and examples from the sources. Now, what are the we are going to discuss about the importance of these meteorological phenomena in agriculture. That means how different ways these meteorological aspects can influence the agriculture, and we will also see what are the different ways we can also use this meteorological knowledge for our benefits. So, whatever the condition, the weather and climate is the one of the important aspects to know for the proper planning of the agricultural production system. And to doing so in each of the step of the agricultural practices is very greatly dependent on the meteorological aspects. For example, plowing the lands, or if you wanted to prepare the land, weeding, irrigation, manuring, or spraying, dusting, harvesting period, or maybe a storage, even your transportation, all are dependent on the weather phenomena. That means the meteorological conditions. A good example is, if you take any of them. For example, you wanted to plow your land. So normally, if you ask the farmer when you love to have your land to be plowed, then they will say we'll go for the plowing process when the soil is little bit moist. Okay, why? Because that time the soil is very soft, and if you go take your plow to the land, it could be very easy to plow your land. So you have, and then think about that, how your soil will be moist and soft. Maybe after one or two shower, when it gets the water from the top of your surface, then it go inside, infiltrated, and then it creates the moist condition inside the soil. So it fully dependent on weather phenomena, and you have to wait it. Otherwise, you have to arrange it artificially. For example, you wanted to spray your some insecticide or to your land, to your agricultural crops. Then then what are the things you need to take care of? You should also think about the wind flow, maybe the direction of the flow, and also the amount of the flow. If it is the high amount of the wind is flowing, you should not go there. You should not do the spraying in that time. Maybe you have to wait for to reduce the wind velocity, because in that time if you go for the spraying, maybe your spray will go to the another field, or it might be also come to your face because of the opposite direction, opposite the flow from the opposite direction. So that's why the contents, the different types of activities is fully dependent on the meteorological attributes. Now we are going to discuss very elaborately for each of the application, that how these meteorological attributes are being influenced by the for can influence the agricultural system. First of all, characterization of agricultural climate. If you wanted to determine what type of agriculture is possible from what type of climate, then you need these knowledges. You need to know, you need to determine the crop growing season. You need to know the what is the amount of the solar radiation in that particular location, air temperature, precipitation, and other aspects also. And these are the important climatic factors, and depending on that you can characterize your agricultural climate. That means you can say, well, these are the areas where you can grow this type of agrological crops so that it can get maximum benefits. Why don't we go for the other type of crops? If you go for the other type of crops, maybe that crops will not be survived in here, or it might possible to survive there, but you will not get the maximum benefits, economical benefits from that particular agricultural crops. Secondly, crop planning for stability in production. Particularly in case of Bangladesh, we do have three different seasons for the agricultural production. And from these different conditions, the season also is an important factor. The crops which you can grow in particular winter season, it might not be suitable for the rainy season. The crops which is suitable for rainy season, it might not be suitable in other season. So depending on different requirement, you need to have your plan. You should have your plan great for your land, for your production system. You wanted to grow cabbage and cauliflower, and if you wanted to do it in July to August, it might not be survived there. Why? Because at that time the temperature is too high, and we know cabbage and cauliflower can grow with below temperature. That means maybe when the temperature is 15 to 20 degree at that time. So you have to think, and you have to list it down the factors that can influence your designated crops, and according to that you should have your planning. In many cases, we are dependent on the seasons, and seasons can change the production system fully. For example, we wanted to grow the chili, maybe the green chili, for whole the year round, because it we need it for whole the year round. And for example, the price of the chili, and in this period, or maybe after a couple of weeks after, the price of the chili will be only maybe 20 taka, for example. But in these chili, if you wanted to grow in times of the rainy season, then a sudden rainfall or high amount of the rainfall that can damage your chili seedlings. And then at that time, with couple of shower with this type, the price of the chili will turn to 200. That means 10 times of your present price. So why it is too different? Because of depending on those meteorological phenomena. So you need to plan your crops, and that time you need this knowledge: which crops is more suitable in which season, what of the areas, what are the things you required. You need to plan very finely of your pattern of your cropping. You need to think about the contingent cropping plan. That means if that will not gonna happen, then what type of species that time we can consider. So planning is very important, and this planning it should be dependent on many factors. One of the important factors is meteorological attributes. The third is crop management. Management of crop is very important, because during the agricultural crop production, the time is very limited, and with a very limited amount of time, if you don't consider it significantly, or very great care, then your full crop will gonna damage. And then you're gonna your production. uh, many management system can be involved in the cropping system. You need to have proper irrigation system. You need to proper harvesting system. You need to proper protection of your plant from the different attributes, from diseases, from pest, or from flooding condition, or many things. So crop management is an important factor, and how it has been influenced by the meteorological attributes. Think about, you need to go for a mulching. When you need to do that, this is a management system, crop management system. But mulching is only needed during the dry period, because that time it can retain the humidity on the root system, and root system have some water content inside. But if you do the same thing in the rainy season, that has no meaning. Your money and labor is actually wasted. Similarly, if you go for the weeding, harrowing, both of the things that is needed to do during the dry spells, because at that time you can do that very easily. Fertilizer application, same thing. Same thing. You also dependent on the meteorological attributes. For example, during the heavy rainfall for a couple of days, and you wanted to do the fertilizer application, then what will happen? Your full of the fertilizer application will be lost. Why? Because with the high amount of the rainfall, it will be washed out. Okay. And you also think about the wind speed is your wind speed is should be less than 30 kilometer per hour. Why? If you spray with this one greater than that one, then it will gonna gun from your field. So your it will be gonna lost. Soil moisture is the same. Another one important factor, you have to go for 30 to 80% soil moisture. So I'm not going there, but soil moisture also dependent on other weather phenomena. Okay. So soil itself is not inside the meteorological aspect, but soil moisture is dependent on the weather phenomena, meteorological attributes. So whatever you wanted to do in your crop management system, you have to taken care of the meteorological attributes, otherwise you're not gonna get benefit. uh, if you think about crop monitoring, then to check crop health and growth performance of a crop, you need many meteorological tools. Maybe some crop growth models you need, what amount of the water is needed for a particular species and particular time. You can depend on different tools, and then you can monitor it. You need to irrigate your land, but what amount of the water you needed for your land, you can to monitor that things, you need to check it. And to doing so, you can use many different tools. You can go for water balance technique, or you can also go for remote sensing, or many other things also. So different ways, different tools you can use to check the meteorological attributes, and then you can monitor your products nicely. uh, you have also see the relationship between the crop yield and the local climate. How can you find out that? You can dependent, maybe this is the one way, maybe you can dependent on crop modeling. That means, what does it mean? So it means, depending on your present condition and past condition of your weather phenomena, you can just make some scenario. What would be your total yield if this condition prevail? This is one thing. And this is very straightforward. Another thing is, within couple of years, after maybe after 20 years or 10 years, what would be the climatic condition in a particular region in a particular season? Why it is needed? Because if it has been changed, then it can also change your production system. Now you are dependent on a particular species, and maybe with 1 degree centigrade temperature, this species may not give you enough production. Your product will be survive fine, but the production will be less, so you will lose your product. So how can you get that? You can give this information to the climate model, and then you can understand what would be the expected climatic condition after 20 years in this particular region. And then you can take this information to your crop suitability modeling, so that the crop modeling will say, no, you can go that type of species anymore, because if you go for that particular species, it will gonna survive, but it will gonna give you the maximum benefits. So crop modeling and yield is dependent on meteorological knowledge and attributes. Then research in crop climate relationship. Many agrometeorological knowledge that can also help to understand that what is the relationship between a particular crop with the particular climate. And then we can also have very good important in decision. Sorry, any question? Sorry, no. Well, if you have any question, if your connection is not working properly, then you can also write the question in the chat box so that I can understand. So this type of particular research can give us the idea about the climatic pattern of a particular location, and that particular climatic pattern can make us understand that what type of species is suitable in here. Even that is true for any other natural resources. For example, many big forest species also. One of such example is, for example, within 2050, in case of Bangladesh, the average temperature will gonna increase or decrease. If we can get this information from a particular area, from a particular model, and then we can have some research that what are the species that can survive with this 2 degree or 1 degree in incremental change or less. And then we can suggest, well, if the Bangladesh is turned to that type of particular climatic condition, then maybe we can go for this type of species rather than the present practices. So research in crop production also need this meteorological knowledge. Seventh aspect is climate extremities. That means extreme weather events or climatic events that has created difficulties to grow the products or harvest the products. Those climate extreme events are floods, droughts, hailstorms, high winds, etc. I can explain one of them, such as floods. So flood has a pattern, and every year Bangladesh has been flooded. That's okay. I'm not saying that we should protect the flood, that flood event cannot be happened. It might not be possible, but what we can think about that, this is the time of the flooding, so we should take proper steps depending on the meteorological knowledge. For example, if we have the early warning system of the floods, then we can know that within a week what are the areas that can be inundated in Bangladesh, and then we can take measures accordingly. But as we don't have any such very quick alarming alarm system, so this signal system is not very quick. So we do have many problems. One of the example is the production system in the Howrah. Howrah is the area where the people they plow they go for the crop production during the dry season, and before the rainfall they have completed all of their activities from the field, and this is the normal process. But sometimes the flood that can come little bit earlier, maybe 2 weeks earlier, and that time it would be a very great loss for the farmers, because the harvesting product is in the field, but they did not cut down yet, and that goes full of the under the water. Even the flood comes so quickly, if you have some land bigger than uh, your ability, then it would be very tough, and in front of your eyes the full of the field will be covered with water. And this is one of the extreme event for the Howrah areas. Couple of 2 years back, on type of incident happened in Bangladesh, and in that year, full of the land has been gone under water due to the early flood events. And what happened, the hard area, the farmers are dependent on only one this crop, because they can only grow their products during the dry period, and rest of the time of the year they cannot grow anything in their field. And this one time crop is on the very good source for their whole the year round crop needs. So this is one example, and there are many other examples also. Hailstorms, as I said, hailstorms can create problems to the mango orchard in case of Bangladesh. And now these hailstorms, if you have this knowledge that there will be a hailstorms, and if your production is very in a very initial stage, for example, the mango is in a very juvenile stage, and then suddenly a hailstorm happened, the full the orchard has been damaged. So these climate events is sometimes it comes, but when it comes, that create a heavy loss to the farmers, to the agriculture workers. So we need, if you can get early weather forecasting, then it might be possible little bit to balance it and to check the damages from particular events. You can get many other examples also. These are two examples, but you can get many other examples. Climate climatic knowledge is also can be used in many other purposes. For example, it can be used to diagnose is the soil moisture stresses. Why soil moisture stresses is very much needed. Soil moisture is very much important because if you wanted to irrigate your land, if you wanted to seed your products, if you wanted to go for a particular insecticide application or manure application, in every cases you need to know the soil moisture content. So soil moisture is a component of the soil characteristics, but it is much more dependent on the climatic condition, because a sudden rainfall, 1 or 2 splash, that can give you the moisture level very high inside the soil. On the other hand, if if this is not happened, then you might have to dependent on the artificial irrigation, and that needs your plan, that needs your possibilities to find out the sources of the water from a nearby sources. So all things is much more dependent on the climatic events. Okay, so climate can be used in that senses. Depending on the soil moisture, you can also think about what are the management practices you can change in your production system. You can go for mulching application of that time. In do you need for thinning practices at that time? So many other management practices is related to particular soil moisture stresses. Sorry. Livestock is one part of the agriculture, and many areas of our country, in Bangladesh, we do have different sets of livestock, and these livestock stocks is fully dependent on the meteorological attributes. Those are the areas, not only Bangladesh, throughout the world also. Those are the areas which is very cold countries. You will see the livestock is different, and their pattern is also different. Maybe their characteristics is too far on their body, and they can also survive very cold temperature in high latitudinal countries, maybe Himalayan range and temperate countries. On the other hand, tropical region, the species can be found in here is a little bit different. They can also survive in a high temperature with a high amount of the rainfall, everything. So so if you wanted to get a good amount of the production from your livestock, you have to dependent on the meteorological attributes. In winter, maybe you have some poultry in your farm, and this poultry is much more sensitive with the temperature, from the temperature. And suddenly one night 5-degree temperature has been dropped down, and you did not notice it. And then what happened? You're full of your farm, maybe the 30% of your poultry has been died due to 5 degree Celsius drop down. So that's why it is important to know the weather or phenomena or meteorological aspects, how it has been changed, how quickly it has been changed, and what is the present condition. So depending on that, you can get some benefits from the livestock production system. Another one, which is soil formation. It is at last but not at least. So soil formation is a process by which the parent materials is turned to soil, and then this formation has been greatly influenced by the impact of the temperature, by the impact of the precipitation, humidity, and many others. Because when weathering has been happened, that is dependent on particular this type of factors. Many chemical reactions that has been increased their rate during the high amount of the temperature. So depending on the meteorological attributes, we can say that also influence the soil formation process, and this is important for our agricultural purposes. So from these two discussion, we can understand what are the different aspects that can be discussed in the relationship between meteorology and natural resources, and we do explain the influence of the meteorological attributes to the agricultural crops and also forest crops. So now the floor is open only for these two topics. If you have any question, you can ask me. And if you don't have any question, I'll go to the, after you're asking, I'm going to start a new topics, air quality index. So do you have any question regarding these two? No? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so sound is clear. So if you don't have any question, I am going to the next topic. Air quality index. Index means to categorize the quality. What quality? Air quality. Air quality means, generally we do know that our air is a combination of many gaseous components, and these components have some ratio. But in many cases, the lower environment has been greatly be polluted by different type of pollutants, and then this pollution can create the harmful impact on the life and property of the people, in most of the cases human health. This air pollution, or the quality of the air, that can be categorized depending on some values, and these values are dependent on many other aspects. I can give some good understanding about the agriculture, about the air quality. um, Maybe the air of a particular location, maybe the Chittagong city. What is the current situation of the GC of air quality? So you have some gases which should be in there, and you got a sample from there, and you get analysis that particular sample, and from that sample you found that the air is contaminated with different kinds of pollutants. What are the pollutants? Maybe particulate matter, then carbon contents, okay, means carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, or maybe some nitrous and nitrogen content. And then you can say the air is much more polluted than the 1 hour before because of this. It doesn't mean that this value, actually the value of this index is a relationship between other different values. And the value or grading system, they don't have any units, but they have some meanings. In case of Bangladesh, the Department of Environment, they created or they developed these type of values. They segregate whole the air quality index value in 1 to 500, and they categorize these with five different segments, where 0 to 100 means green, that means it is a very good environment, good air quality. 101 to 150, So you can see this value has been changed. First 0 to 100, but secondly 100 to 150. So here is 50 difference, here is 100 difference, here is 50 difference. Again, here is 100, here is 200. So this has been created by the scientist or by the practitioners who knows better, and they gave each of them a different meaning. So 0 to 100 means good, 0 to 100 to 150 means moderate, 151 to 200 means so each of them they showed a color here. Good means green color, and very extremely unhealthy means purple color. And in between these two, there are other three: yellow, orange, and red. Yellow means moderate, so it is a 50-50 chance, but it doesn't include any units in here. This is a value depending on other units. For example, 0 to 100 means that the air is very good. That means the particular type of different concentration of air pollutants is low. Sometimes it is also possible that your one content is very good, but the other content is not good. In many areas, maybe the nitrogen content is very low, but the other content is very high. Particulate matter may be too high. In that cases, your result has been changed. So it doesn't only mean that with this value I can't say that this particular type of air pollutants is much more in here. I can't say that, but I can say that from this value I can say that, well, the outside is this much polluted. It should be also noted that these values can be different in different countries. The USA shows a different one, the UK system is different one. Why it is different and why the levels and grading system are different? Because the pollutant contents in USA or the UK is not similar than the pollutants of Bangladesh. So each of the locations, each of the country, they have a different sets of air pollution contents, and depending on they defined it and they segregated it. So that's why the index value, the air pollution index value, it's not very constant for every country, for every locations. It can be only possible to make this, to take a small take a location, so that that particular location can only provide your answer. Another thing is, the people, they don't like to see the value anything, because of there is no unity in here. What do you can understand from 101 to 150? Nothing. That doesn't mean nothing to a layman, but maybe for ourselves who are interested about the meteorology, who are interested about the air pollution, we can say, well, this 101 and to 150 means this amount of the lead can be, and now it is present in your air, or maybe this amount of the other contents, other air polluting contents is present in the air. This can be seen. So people, what do the people like? People like to see the color. When they see this any color, they will take the, for example, they see this is orange color. So what does orange color means? Unhealthy. They don't taken care about the values 151 to 200. It doesn't mean anything for them. Only this is important for only this is important for to understand the local conditions. Rather than that, people don't care about that. So people will see it is one, and it is see orange only. When they see orange, okay, so the people, that person may have some works, very important works outside, but it said orange means unhealthy. So maybe if the work is very important, they said, okay, I'll take a risk and I should go. Okay, but if the person have the a different choice, maybe in that cases that person is not taking decision, well, I'll not go. But if the person sees this is purple in color, then in any way they say, no, I'll not go there because this is extremely unhealthy. and that cause serious impact on my body, so I should not go there. So depending on color, people will take their decisions about the air quality. Although it is not well practiced in Bangladesh, but day by day the people will be more aware and people will be much dependent on it. In many countries of this world, they are fully dependent on the air quality index, particularly few regions of China or Hong Kong, or maybe some industrialist areas of different countries, is very important for this type of weather forecasting. Do you have any question regarding the air quality index?
Sir, how the quality are measured, sir? Air quality.
That's why they explain that, for example, your particulate matter is uh, uh, 200 ppm at present context, and maybe your sulfur dioxide in your current system, it is only 10 ppm, and maybe others. So each of them has some influence on your health. This is only health concerns. This is not for the other environmental concern. So each one have some different health concept, and the unit is similar, but the influence is not similar. The particulate matter which we get, they create some of the your health issues, but with the similar amount of the other types of pollutants, they might not be have the same problem to our health. So what they do, each of them, they set a particular number, maybe 100 ppm of particular matter. If greater than 100 ppm of particular matter, maybe uh, that will cover 50, the value is 50. And then sulfur dioxide, if it is more than 10, they will cover maybe 70. uh, the nitrous oxide, maybe that is this amount of the nitrous oxide, means that amount of the value. When they take all these values and then they can average it and they can give you a result. So each of the item of the pollutants, they have different consequences on your health, and depending on, sorry, consequences, but sorry, okay. So each of them, they have different amounts influence on your health system. One is very bad if it is 100 ppm. One is very bad even if it is only 20 ppm. So depending on that, they created some value, and then they make some average, or they can have a smaller value and then they summarize that. Can you get that? Maybe your area is full of um, lead content, but other things is very nice. Sulfur dioxide has less amount, then our particulate matter have less amount, but high amount of the lead content, and this is not suitable for your health. And then you will get the benefit, get this number that, well, this lead, this amount means uh, 300, and this amount means 500, like this. And when they get this value, they calculated all of their values, and finally that shows what amount of the health concern we need to understand. So altogether they give a value in here, and this value has no unit because they are dependent on many other units, many other type of pollutants. Is it clear for you, Siam?
Yes, sir.
Well, so if you don't have any question, then I'll go to the next one, weather modification. Weather modification is a very important and very interesting also, aspect. Weather modification itself denotes that this is a process by which we can modify or change the weather. And as I said, we wanted to change, that means it is intentional and it should be governed artificially. This is weather modification. And when the weather modification has been this knowledge has been evolved, so basically two different ways we can use. Either it can be used for very harmful purposes, or it can be used for very very good purposes. That means we can get some benefits from particular type of weather modification things. So when it is very harmful, that means you created some weather event which might be very difficult to face for your opposite or opposite party. That means some of the users, but normally we do not think about that, because this is a very this should not be actually first, and then this is the very early stage research, so that we only dependent here only some artificial ways of changing weather for our benefits. First of all, fog dispersal. In many areas of this world, fog creates many important aspects, and particularly generally we don't have any problem, but in case of transportation, it sometimes provide a very big threat. Uh, Many important airports throughout the world, they are much more influenced by the fog. Sometimes the fog is so dense the flight cannot be landed. They knows the exact places, but they cannot see, the pilot cannot see the landing ground. So at that time it would be very very tough to land the surface, to land the plane to the ground. So we need to disperse this fog. We need to overcome this foggy environment. How can we do that? In principle, we need to disperse it with sufficient heating, or we can go for some mechanical mixing, so that it can be just vaporized, or it can be condensed to fall down. Okay, so in both the ways, and it is very important that if we can do that, it can also give if we invest such amount of the money to create this environment, surely that will also be benefited, because during this time, maybe 1 or 2 hour, if the flight has been cancelled to land or to start with, that time it has been a great loss for many busy airports. Some of the airports, in 1 minute, in every 1 minute, one flight has been landed, one flight has been just started its flight. So these are very busy airports, and with that type of airports, it is much more tough to retain its schedule if the fog cannot be dispersed. So what we can do, we can go for dispersal of the supercooled fogs using some glaciogenic materials or coolants. That means we use some materials that can create these fogs more condensed. That means more cool, and when they are more cool, then they become heavier and they will gonna fall down to the ground. On the other hand, you can go for some seeding of hygroscopic materials. Hygroscopic means that attract the water contents, and they act like the shoot materials inside the nuclei, and they become attracted by the warm fogs, and then they can also be fall down to the ground with the heavier weight. So this is fog dispersal, and it can be easily used for many of the airports. Secondly, we can go for another weather event changing, that is precipitation enhancement. Some of the areas where we have supercooled uh, clouds in some areas, but that type of cloud may not give you the rainfall. You can see only the cloud, but maybe that cloud, that particular cloud, if come down as a precipitation, it would give you a very good benefit. So what we can do, we can use again the same things, glaciogenic or hygroscopic materials, so that it can uses, um, and it can creates the favorable condition for the precipitation. If you give glaciogenic content components, then it these super cool, these cool things, they can be, they makes the temperature lower, and temperature lower means all the vaporized atoms, they come together and they form heavy content, and then they become watery and they wanted to fall down. Hygroscopic materials means they attract by the watery contents and come together, and they again, they act as a shoots, so that they can also settle down to the downwards. uh, to do these things, normally we do use silver iodide on of the salt particles to seed supercooled cumulus clouds. If it is a cumulus clouds, we wanted to give that, and then on the top of them, when you provide this silver iodide, then it will act as a coolant, and it makes to happen the rainfall in a particular area. But mind it that this is not a very well established practice. Theory is okay, but not well established practice, because this is much tougher. How you can understand the cloud now, and then how you can distribute this type of silver iodide to the clouds. It is very, very important. Then you might need some chopper, you might need some plane to do that. So depending on many influences, then you can take the decisions. It's not very straightforward. Thirdly, we can go for some of the attempts to suppress the hail. I said before, hail can damage in many products, particularly the agricultural products, in different areas of this world. And to do so, if you use some hygroscopic nuclei, if you can create it hygroscopic nuclei, then it might be possible that hail can be turned to some other sets of watery substance, or maybe some super cold rainfall or anything, and they can give you a very good results. But the problem is, this type of phenomena has not been well established by practice. We do have many good theories. Sometimes we have been successful, sometimes we cannot be successful because of the other phenomena. Whatever the case, the process is very in a early stage. Our theory is strong, but our practice is in a very primary condition, so we cannot depend on all of these aspects 100% correct. So there is a chance, but not always it will happen. So from these three different types of weather modification, fog dispersal is well established, because this can be wide level spread out throughout the airports and many transportation system. Secondly, precipitation can also be possible, but still we don't use sufficiently it throughout the world. But this is the way how we can do that. And thirdly, we can go for hail suppression, but which is uh, uh, which is not established enough in practice. So depending on your purpose, you can go for other type of modification. But the problem is, the amount of the money you need, the information you need, all are dependent on particular organizations, and then these organizations need to be give you the idea and facilities, and you can go for those services with your amount of the information and an amount of the monetary value, and then you can get the results. So depending on your investment, and depending on your expected outcome, you can go for weather modification contests. So I think I have completed my this chapter, and if you now have any question, you can ask me, and we're gonna start a new chapter in the next day. So do you have any question now? Anyone? If you do not have any question, I should also consider another thing. In the next class, we will start the new chapters, one of the new chapters. But in the next week, Siam, can you just see in the next week, the Monday and Wednesday, both are government holidays. 14th
Yes, sir.
December.
14th and 16th December, sir.
Yes. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to take the class of the 14th in 13th in Sunday. And from Wednesday, I wanted to shift the class on 15th. That means on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
If you have no other class in the same time.
Sir, we don't have, sir. Sir, we are okay with that, sir. Sure.
Okay. My schedule will be fixed like this, same time, but the 15th, 14th on is 13th, and 16th on is 15th. Okay, and
Okay, sir.
hopefully I will complete it your all of the syllabus within these classes. So I'll take the classes in the day after tomorrow, and then another 2 classes in the next chapter. That means 6 classes will be taken within these 3 days. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So if you don't have any question, thank you all of you to join me, and hopefully you will come back day after tomorrow, Wednesday, same time. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.